Hey, everybody, welcome to Lessons from the Cockpit. I'm Belinda Sandor. Let's get started. All right, everybody, we had a little bit of a technical error. I'm hoping that you are joining me now and can hear the audio, and I would love to hear from the people who are here whether or not the audio is working. So thank you for coming. For those of you, I'm going to start from the top. For those of you joining me for the first time, I'm Belinda Sandor, founder of the VA Connection, where I coach and mentor aspiring and established virtual assistants to create, grow, and scale their virtual assistant businesses. So I work with my students in my free online community, courses and coaching programs. And today I am your host of Lessons from the Cockpit. And it sounds like audio is working. Okay, good. Thanks you guys for letting me know. Awesome. So today I'm going to be your host for Lessons from the Cockpit. And this is my weekly live stream show that airs every Tuesday at 10:30. And this is where I share tactical and practical information and advice, whether you're just starting out or you've been in business for a while. And I'd love to hear where you're coming in from. If you could put that in the comments, that would be great. We are streaming all over the place and hopefully with audio. We are on Facebook. We are on LinkedIn. We are on Twitter. We are on YouTube. And if you're watching from YouTube, we are in the process of revamping our entire channel. It's very exciting. I'm having a lot of fun. And I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe and also ring the bell so that you'll get notifications when we go live. Mostly because we have at least 2 free trainings a week, sometimes more, and I don't want you to miss a thing. Okay, good. So today we're going to talk about how we sabotage ourselves by worrying about what other people think about us. And so before we dive in, I'm going to introduce myself, and I would love for you to tell me where you're coming in from. Okay, good. Also, any questions you have on any topic, drop them in the chat, okay? And I'll answer them for you. So this is me and my daughter, Emily, who's now 22. This was us in 2010 when I was just starting out my business, and my life had taken an unexpected turn. I was a few months shy of my 50th birthday, and I definitely had expectations about where my life would be at this point, and I thought everything would be handled. And for some reason, 50 seemed really old to me. And it was like, well, I'm just going to slide into the golden years. And what's funny now is at 62, there's no sliding happening here. I am, having the time of my life, really enjoying myself, and don't see any end date to that, really. But back then I was really crushed, because I looked up and I thought that, I was just going to be in a different place. I figured I was going to be happily married. I would have a home, I would have financial success, all these things. But instead I had kind of the polar opposite. I'm getting a divorce. I literally had to sell my house because I hadn't been able to pay the mortgage for a year. I had creditors calling me all day long. I had 7 years of back taxes. It was a mess. I was nowhere near where I thought I was going to be. And I was stressed out all the time, like seriously, all the time. And I had to figure out how to get back on track. And intuitively, I knew I wasn't going to be able to make enough money at a job. And I knew that I wasn't going to have the flexibility that I was desperate for as a mother. And so I returned to my roots. I returned to what I knew, and I decided to offer administrative support to business owners. I was a secretary in my 20s, back in the dark ages. I really liked the work. And a successful entrepreneur told me that in order to be successful myself, I needed to tell everybody that I knew what I was up to, tell them that I was a virtual assistant. And I took this to heart. And I literally got my first client at the school bus stop, talking to the dads as we waited with our kids. He said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm starting this business, blah, blah, blah." And I explained it to him. And he was so thrilled, because what I later realized was that I was a solution to his problem. His problem was getting his bills paid. His problem was, getting software installed on computers. His problem was his email inbox. And what I realized later, because I kept thinking, they're hiring me and this is, I'm the only one that's benefiting because I'm getting this money that I need, but really they were benefiting massively, by my help. The second client I met in the wedding buffet line, standing there holding my plate, making chit chat. I tell this guy about my business. He's still a client. He's still a client and now a friend. And he's speaking at our conference coming up. So if you guys don't know about the conference, keep an eye on your inbox because we're going to close registration to that any minute now. And I want you to know about it. But, you just don't want to waste your time trying to prospect and figure out, where clients are. It's just a waste of time. And I have some exciting stuff coming up that's percolating in my head about telling you the stories of how I found my clients. And so I leaned in. I definitely changed my mindset. And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today. I started keeping my word to myself. I stepped out of my familiar comfort zone and I built a successful business that earned $70,000 the first year and $100,000 a year for the next 10 years. And the systems and that I developed and the methods I use to grow my own virtual assistant business are what I teach at the VA Connection. And I would love to teach you too. So let's fast track. So here, this is us 2 years ago. This is what my life looks like now. I've been in business as a virtual assistant for 13 years. My finances are handled, no more minimum payments and getting by. Someone's boxing me and hopefully, let's see, there we go. Okay. I think it is our fabulous ambassadors are scrambling to help everybody to figure out where's Belinda right now, because we had a little bit of a failure on our first try of this lesson today. So thank you guys. Thank you very much. So here I am. This is my wedding day. This was 2 years ago. We got married in August of 2021. And I have a thriving business, that I built one day at a time. And I was there for my daughter as she grew up. I can breathe again. I married the man I've been looking for my whole life at 60. And here we are, like I said, on our wedding day, and you can start again too. You can start again too. It's there for you. It's absolutely there for you. But a big part of this is your mindset and worrying about what other people think about you. So let's dive into this. Okay. Let's dive into it. So we want to have a thriving business. We know it's going to bring us time, freedom, and financial security. Right? We know that's what we want. We're really clear. We want the benefit of being able to work around important events in our life, right? Like caring for aging parents. We have that. Greg's parents live 2 houses over, and it's often that something will come up and they'll need our help. The refrigerator breaks, or when you have a job, you can't just go jump in the run over to their house and start taking all the milk and putting it somewhere else. You can't do that. You want to be at baseball games. You want to be there for your kids. Parents' weekend is coming up, and if I had a job, it would be I would be leaving to go there at a different time than I'm going to be able to. And we want to be able to take care of ourselves. Eat good food, go for walks. And while that's doable with a job, it's much easier to walk into the kitchen and whip up some really healthy food than it is to go down to the food court at the mall in your office building, or whatever it is. And so, but what happens is we know we want this business, but we let our doubts and our fears get in the way before we get started. We do that. So we never take the first step, or we start and stop and start and stop, and we never get any traction. And that is painful, and I want you to know that starting and stopping and starting and stopping that we do, and all of the trash talking in our head is way more exhausting than being successful. It's way more exhausting. And I will tell you that being successful is scary. It is definitely scary. The whole concept of like, is this going to fall apart? Is this going to fall? How long can I do this? And I, as a really recovering perfectionist, wanting to get everything right, it's not a matter of how long can I stay perfect to maintain my success. It's really more about, okay, what can I do today to make that better? What can I do today to tell one more person about my business? It's really about incremental action. That's the whole thing. And I believe that once we embrace this incremental action, and wake up every morning saying, okay, today I'm going to do this, and not try to go from 0 to 60, not try to go from 0 to 60. And the thing is that what happens is our energy shifts, our energy shifts. And the thing is that taking those steps from the mindset of what can I accomplish today can be energizing. It can be exciting. And it made me wonder why more people don't take the steps to have the success they want, especially since there's information everywhere about how to do that. I certainly share it here. If you want a successful virtual assistant business, all you have to do is tune in, right? Tune in, let me help you. It's all right there. But I read a quote that stopped me in my tracks, because I was really trying to figure out like why are people not taking that step? And the quote was, stop worrying about people who aren't worried about you. And I thought, oh, that's what we're all doing. We're worrying about what other people are thinking, and it's such a simple statement. Stop doing that, right? And it makes perfect sense. And I'd love to hear how many of you are doing that. How many of you are making important life choices based on the criteria of whatever other people will think. Most of us. Now, imagine a conversation you might have with a friend or a child. Okay. So this is ridiculous, but I want to illustrate the point, and then I want to tell you about something that I did. So what if someone came to you, like your child or your best friend, and they said, I have wanted to be a fireman for my whole life. Like, I've dreamed about it. I like to go to fires and watch them put it out. I watch TV shows about it. I've watched documentaries about it. But you know what? My friend Sam, he doesn't think I can do it. So I'm going to be an accountant. Like, what would your response be to that? You'd be like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, what are you talking about? Right. And so the thing is that, there's a lot of flawed thinking that we buy into. So this is interesting to hopefully to you too. So I have a book that's being published on October 17th. I just announced it a little bit in the VA school Facebook group in the VIP club. And you're going to hear more about it if you're not in those organizations, or those communities. But the book is 13 women writing their story. And I got to tell you what my story is about. My story is about this topic. Stopping worrying about what other people are thinking. Like, I chose, spouses, I chose friends, I chose clothes, I chose all these things based on what other people thought about me. And the thing that's so interesting was they weren't even looking at me. I talk about, going to high school and moving all these different times and how excruciating it was and uncomfortable, and how I just twisted myself into being a chameleon, literally changing colors, changing hair, changing all these things based on other people's experience of me, and that's part of what that very first business that I had, why it failed. Because I spent more time looking at what other people were doing in that industry and trying to copy them than I did finding someone to help me do what I wanted to accomplish, right? Which was different. It was different, but I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust that I would have a good idea, and I stayed stuck. And so I stayed small. And that's what ran that business into the ground. And what alternatively put the fuel in my tank was getting mad enough about where my life was that I was like, I don't care anymore. I don't care. It's not that I don't care about the people. I maintained relationships with many of the people in my life, but there were other people. I just had to really take charge of my thoughts. And here's what some of us are thinking, right? Someone might see me fail and I can't live that down, right? I'll be defeated in front of all these people, and that's what it felt like to have that business. It was called Blueberry Babies, and I sold personalized baby gifts online. And in many ways it was successful, and people thought I was raking in the money, but it was not financially successful. It was not. And it was a lot because I didn't have the systems in place. I didn't have someone coaching me how to do it. The industry was really new. I have a million reasons, but at the core of it, I know what it was. I was sitting at night looking at the competition and I felt bad about myself. Right. And, the other thing, so there's this whole notion of failing, And I'm going to misquote Thomas Edison, but there's something about, he says, it took him, something like, I just read this recently in a book. It was something like he learned 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb. He didn't see it as 10,000 failures. He saw it as 10,000 steps getting closer to what he wanted. And I want you to shift your mindset to that as well, because there's nothing rarely that we can do that we nail right out of the gate. Think about a baby walking, they're up and down and hitting their head and doing all the things, but they just keep going. And it's that momentum of the movement that makes it happen. Okay. Now here's the flip side. What if someone sees me succeed and I can't possibly live up to that? That's been interesting, for me as well, because I have found myself in the past hide my success because it feels like sometimes bragging, or it feels like people are going to want something from me, or, I'm going to need to change my life. Or here's the big one. I'm going to need to change my story, because what I'll do is I'll tell myself, oh, you can't do that. Like, you can't afford that. You don't deserve that. And then I think, well, I can afford it. And I deserve, that's hard, right? To say that we deserve something. But it's this whole mindset thing of, what are other people going to think if I buy the expensive shoes, or if I take us out to dinner, or if I get my hair done, or fly on vacation, or whatever I do? What are people going to think? Like, what are they going to think? Like, who cares, right? So the thing is I want you to think about, what if you imagined how to make today successful? Like, you just focused on that. How am I going to make today successful? And you focused on that, right? And then you did the same thing the next day. How am I going to make today successful? How am I going to do that? How could I make a difference? And this is not one and done. In my experience, I didn't wake up one day and say, okay, I'm going to make myself successful for the rest of my life, and everything's going to be fine. I still have moments where I'm like, okay, how are we going to work on that? Because there are things that are going really well, and there are things that are not where I want them to be, which is different from failing, right? And so you have to really look at how you talk to yourself. But I read something, and I think it's in my book chapter. I read in a book once that the number of people who come to your funeral, okay, the number of people who come to your funeral is largely dependent on the weather. Think about that for a minute. Okay. That is kind of a showstopper. So here I am. I'm not going to be a fireman. I'm not going to be a successful virtual assistant. I'm not going to have my own business because what other people think about me, and they may or may not even be attending my funeral. That is such a tragedy. Do you see the tragedy in that? So when you start to listen to yourself, when you start to tune out what people are thinking about you, and okay, here's a huge thing. Here's what happens. When we care what other people think about, it sucks our energy. It sucks. I wanted to say saps, but it does both. It sucks and saps. All right. It's a double S situation. And it really, it's like tying our hands behind our back, right? So I don't want you to do that. I want you to pay attention to, so let me give you an example. Okay. So one day, I published my newsletter for Rocket Girl Solutions, right? I haven't done that for a couple of years, but when I was in my prime and I was publishing it, every 2 weeks, one day, and this has happened multiple times, somebody blasted me. Like, totally blasted me and said, take me off your list. I don't know how I got on it. This is ridiculous, blah, blah, blah. Well, my list was 100% opt-in. So maybe he forgot who I was. I went to look at his LinkedIn profile, and it was his birthday. And I was like, wow, that's his energy on his birthday. Something bad must have happened. So I felt that feeling that we all have when someone blasts us of like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. And then I thought, you know what? He's having a bad day. I didn't do anything harmful. He doesn't want to be on my list. I'll take him off. And then I did what I could to let it go, right? I did what I could to let it go. And then it did let a little air out of my tires. Let me rephrase that. I let a little air out of my tires based on what he said to me, because it's my choice how I interpret that. But then I pumped him back up and I kept going. And yes, it might have taken me an hour or so, to totally, sort of shed that feeling. but I didn't tell the story over and over, and I didn't make a big deal out of it, and I didn't dwell on it. I just moved on. It's like, wow, he's having a bad day. He doesn't like my newsletter. That's okay. I didn't stop doing it. In the same thing, there are people who attend my free training that I'm going to tell you about in a minute. It starts in next Monday. And there are people who have sent me emails that say, why do you talk about this? And why do you talk about that? And I don't think you should do this. And my attitude is, you don't have to come. Like, you don't have to. I'm not forcing you. You're not in, you're like, I haven't put a seatbelt on you, you know? And the same with my newsletter. You know, he could have clicked the unsubscribe button, but he had some energy and he wanted to get it out, you know? Okay. But, you know, when something like that happens and someone tells you something about you, they have some kind of judgment. I want you to put them like in a little TV box, like, and kind of look at them like, okay, wow, that's like a whole bunch of energy you're having over there, but you don't have to let it impact you. All right. You don't. Now, this, like I said, this is not one and done. I wake up and I have a talk with myself every single day, every single solitary day. Okay. I look at my calendar. What am I going to do today so that at the end of the day, I'm going to feel really good? What am I going to do? Does it succeed all the time? No. And sometimes I get through to the middle of the day and I think, this is not working. This is not working. That happened to me on Friday. I don't know why. I was like very disoriented. Well, probably because I was going out of town. And I thought, okay, you're working on the wrong thing. This is why this doesn't feel good. That thing can wait until the end of October. You're feeling all this pressure about something else. Handle that. And I spent 3 hours doing that, the thing that was going to make a difference. And it did. And I felt better and it moved me forward. We know when we're doing things that are not going to impact our success. So when you have that feeling, just stop and say to yourself, what am I doing? Am I hiding out? Like, what's going on? Right? What's going on? Okay. So the other thing I want you to know is to create a successful business, any business. And as a virtual assistant, it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen overnight. And that's the good news. It's not something that happens to you. It's something that you craft day by day, week by week, year by year. All right. So build your business according to what's in your heart and not stories you're making up about what other people think. All right. Trust me, you're going to be much happier. And pay attention to what's in your head. You know, it's funny because every once in a while, my father died 20 years ago. He was very supportive of me. And every once in a while, his voice will come into my head and he'll say, and it will be judgmental. And the first thing I think is, wow, I haven't even talked to him for 20 years in the flesh. And some doubt that he may or may not have even thought I will put into my head. But now I think, okay, well, first of all, that's not real. 2, the world has changed. And 3, you're doing what's in your heart. That's the right thing. You know, that's the right thing. So just pay attention to who you're listening to and who you're living your life according to. Because my experience has been when I started to listen to myself, when I started to act according to who I wanted to be as a person, it massively benefited everyone around me. I'm a better wife. I'm a better companion. I'm a better friend. I'm definitely a better mother because I'm being true to myself. And the result is that instead of my life sucking the energy from me, I have way more to give. And that feels great. Yeah. Okay, good. Good. So thanks for coming. Thanks for finding me again. And I want to invite you all to my free training that's all about getting your business off the ground. And if you've been in business for a while and you're not where you want to be, you probably missed a couple of steps. And that's okay. That happens to all of us. It took me several years to get my business where it was like cha-ching, you know, thriving and cooking along. So if you want to learn a whole lot about the skill of attracting referral clients, you know, I invite you to attend my free training. We're starting on September 18th. We're going to start with mindset sessions. We've added this in recently. We're going to have a mindset session every single week, and people have told me they love them. We're going to talk about imposter syndrome, doing something different. We're going to talk about all kinds of things during the mindset sessions. And then the big event is at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. This is a 5-day training to kickstart your business. We're going to talk about what to do if you're just starting out. And like I said, if you've been in business for a while and your business isn't where you want to be, what you want it to be, you will definitely learn a lot about how to take the next step. Yeah. Yeah. So I want you to join me for the next episode of Lessons from the Cockpit right here next week. All right. I'll be watching for you. Until then, I'm Belinda Sandor signing off.